Good morning, my British literature students. Welcome to week number 6 of the semester. Um, this is an exciting week because we have just finished with the Romanticism period of our semester, and we are about to transition into the Victorian period. So, what that means now is that you are finished with the Romanticism book, unless, of course, you're going to write your research paper on one of the authors we did in Romanticism, and now you are going to work in Victorian literature. And so this is a great week as far as that goes because this is probably my favorite part of the whole semester is the Victorian part. So good news there. Um, I did see that many of you have completed your uh, Romanticism exams, and if you didn't, then that train's already left the station. But I think everybody just about completed it. And the good news is that just about everybody got A's and B's. So uh, that's good news there. So you've done very well on this exam. And I think you're going to see when you look at that your grade is actually going to be improved, even if you were struggling with the discussion postings, because the exam carries a little bit more weight. All right, so um, the postings, I have graded all the postings that were done as of about, I think it was noontime yesterday. So I got all of those graded. If you're behind on the postings, I don't know what to tell you. You got to get caught up. And now I'm starting to assess some late penalties for those of you that have not done any postings from 3 weeks ago. In fact, on those, I'll just automatically fail the postings even if you turn them in. So you got to stay caught up on those. Also, notice the email that I sent that you have to make sure that you get the author's name correct in the postings. Some of you are still putting in the editors. And so that's why I fired off that email yesterday saying, hey, aren't you listening to me? Because apparently there are students that are not. So I attached an email to it that will allow you to go ahead and do a copy paste and then just change the author's name and the work name and the page numbers. I can't make it any easier than that. So if you still are trying to give the editors who are, can't remember the name, Stiller, I think, and I can't remember the lady's name, credit for writing works that were actually written by our authors, such as Samuel Taylor Coleridge and Mary Wollstonecraft, then I'm going to just start penalizing bigger for that. So make sure you get that right. Okay. So the postings, like I said, have been graded up to about noon yesterday. Got the names there. The final thing is that we're going to do only one author this week, and the reason that we're only doing one author this week is because those that meet on campus are only meeting twice this week. And remember, one of the lessons is the introduction to Victorian literature. Now, you don't have to actually post on that, but you need to look through that video or that PowerPoint slideshow and get an idea of what Victorian literature is. You should also read those pages that are in the textbook, because Victorian time period lasted about 60 to 70 years. And its centers is called the Victorian time period because it was about the time that Queen Victoria was ruling England. And there are three main time periods during her reign because she reigned for about 61 or 62 years. So because she reigned longer than any monarch in British history, the time period is named after her. And because she ruled longer than any monarch in time in British history, we also have an incidence where there are many, many changes. And a lot of huge changes occurred during the Victorian period. One of those changes was that England's empire expanded greatly. In fact, it got to a point, and we're going to talk about this more when we get to the the imperialism portion of the semester. Her empire had expanded so much that it was said that the sun never set on it, because somewhere where the sun was shining, it was shining on some land that was owned by England. So That's going to be a very important part of the semester, and there were some positive effects, but there are also some negative effects that we'll look at. Another great instance that of great change that occurred during her time period was the Industrial Revolution. Now, granted, it had started a little bit before she ascended to the throne, but it really kicked into high gear during her reign. And we are going to look at that during the Victorian period of this semester. And we're going to read some very enlightening literature about the painful changes that the Industrial Revolution brought about. The end result, of course, is that the world is much different today than it was prior to the advent of factories, but those changes did not come without a high human cost. So we'll look at that as well. So look at that Victorian stuff, because that's going to set the stage for the next several weeks. Now, the good news for you is you've only got one posting, and that is on one author, and that is on Alfred Lord Tennyson. And I think you're going to like him. Alfred Lord Tennyson makes sense in this transitionary period because he bridges that gap kind of between the Romantics and the Victorians. And we're going to read two of his poems. One is The Lady of Shalott, which is based upon the King Arthur legend. So think about the King Arthur legend when you read this. That's why she's going to fall in love with Sir Lancelot. Also, as you read this, think about how this could be an allegory for a young lady losing her innocence and becoming more worldly and becoming more of a woman. So that is another theme that plays out through The Lady of Shalott. Then the other poem you're going to read is Ulysses. And Ulysses, it would not hurt you, honestly, to go back and go into something like Wikipedia or go into SparkNotes or whatever this time. Now, you'll never hear me say that very often, but this time I think it's a good idea to familiarize yourself with the Odyssey, which is Homer's great epic poem about Ulysses' journey from Troy after the Trojan War back home to his homeland to reunite with his wife Penelope and his son Telemachus. Because understanding that story will help you understand the poem Ulysses by Tennyson. And what this poem has done is it actually carries on the story of Ulysses after he arrived home. And you'll see that he's an aged man, but this 20-year journey has changed him forever because now he cannot just simply come back home and settle down. He is an adventurer at heart. He must go on a quest, and so he's basically leaving his homeland, putting Telemachus in charge and saying, I now cede my kingdom over to my son, and oh, by the way, I love you, honey, but I gotta go. And now he's going to go on a ship, and he's going to go back out for great adventures, even though he's probably too old to do so. But that doesn't stop him from trying. So the theme there, of course, is lost youth and lost glory. So those are the two themes that you will see in Tennyson's poetry this week. Tennyson is actually most well known for his poem In Memoriam. And In Memoriam was a long poem that he wrote about his best friend Arthur Hallam, who died at a very young age. And there are several lines in poetry that you would know from In Memoriam, particularly the very famous line, it is better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. But because In Memoriam is such a long and complicated poem, I decided to give you these two shorter poems that are a little bit more accessible. And then, of course, Tennyson is also well known for a poem that I almost had you read but changed my mind about, The Charge of the Light Brigade. So you could read that on your own if you like Tennyson and become familiar with it also, because it is a great poem. But again, I think that the two poems I've selected for you, where he basically carries on or adds to stories that have already been established, are really good examples of Tennyson's poetry. So bear that in mind as you read those two works. And with that, I don't really have anything more to add to this week's video. So get those postings in. If you've not been doing them, your grade is suffering for it. Let's get started on this Victorian time period, because this, to me, is the most exciting part of the semester.